Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Babbling Irons. So today we're going to do a review on the Southampton game, which ended 1-1. It was a bit of an interesting game. One that, yet again, another game with a bit of a controversy. It seems to be a bit of a running theme at the moment with West Ham. But before we get into all of the controversy of the game and the what kind of happened, good place to always start is to start with the lineups. And I don't think there's really any surprises, to be honest, Sloth, bearing in mind the injuries that we had, and we lined up like so. What was your take on the lineup?
My take from the whole of the summer, really. Like I was saying that we needed another centre back because we can't rely on the fitness of, and it's nothing to do with the quality of the players we've got. We all love Ogbonna. We all like Dawson and really love what he's given to the club. But when you have aging and injury-prone centre-backs, get depth, because it opens yourself up to these situations. And it's the same thing with people going, why don't we play two up top? Well, that's because we've only got two up top in the entire squad. So it just increases your risks of this situation. So for me, the defence was the real problem. As I said, disappointed but not surprised. It's just a total lack of forward planning from us, and people won't like to hear it, and they'll say, well, we spent a lot of money, and it's like, yeah, but we also had an extremely aging and injury-prone squad, and whether they like that or not, the fact is that if we'd gone out and got someone like Sazlai or whoever it might be, someone for a decent fee, about £10 million like Kara was, then even Ahmed Hamovic.
Is that Sheffield United? Yeah, it's actually doing really well there as well. But again, it's another player we put out.
Couple of £1 million. We both spoke about because Bordeaux were in trouble. And that fixes that issue. It gives you someone who can come on and you can say, go out and show me what you can do. You may not have played for the whole of the season in the league. You may have had a couple of games in Europa. Go and show us what you can do in the league. But instead, you're relying on this square pegs in round hole approach. And it's just a bit disappointing. I think going forward, there was no issue with the lineup at all. I think I would like to see Downs start the next game, and that wasn't really because Souček had a bad game. I just think we look so much better when we control the game and when we have possession, and it might be against Liverpool, but Downs helps us do that. And as much as I like Souček and I think he is a great asset, I think he could be another one like Antonio, who, if you have 20 minutes left in a game, just chuck him on. Use him as an instrument. Don't throw on Lanzini because we don't really need him. Chuck on the big physical unit who's just going to run about and throw himself at everything.
Yeah, great. So, obviously, the lineup was kind of as we expected. The defence, we know about the issues in defence. But that being said, we started off pretty well. In the opening couple of minutes, Emerson had a very good opportunity that just went wide. We also then had an incident in the area with Souček against Perrault, which, when you look back at it, you can kind of see maybe where Moyes is coming from based on the penalty that we got last week against Fulham. But then when you also kind of watch it, Perrault actually doesn't do a great deal. He kind of stands his ground. Yes, he leans into Souček, but when you watch Souček going for the ball, he kind of throws himself at it and misses it as well. So it's kind of, I can understand why it didn't given. It was one of those where Perrault gave the referee the opportunity to make a decision, and his decision was no foul, no penalty. I actually think there was another incident in the first half where Bowen cuts in front of the Southampton player, gets brought down in the box. As the ball comes out, Soufal comes in and chops in behind and takes out the defender. which is probably more of a penalty because it was just clumsy. The guy went into the back. It would have been soft and harsh, but it was arguably a pen because outside the area, you're going to give it if a player gets in front. But, we started off promisingly. We had some good kind of patches. Again, Scamacca, great with his link play. We've said it time and again, what he does in that front line is something we haven't seen in that. When he leads the line, he also dictates play. I think what we've seen with Antonio's way of leading, he leads that by being a bulldozer and just physically looking to dominate and run channels.
Well, whereas, there was an excellent moment from Scamacca where I think about it was in the second half, but he picked up the ball and he immediately sprayed it out wide to just out, and he just sprinted into the box. And Soufal of 2 seasons ago whips that in across for Scamacca, and he throws himself out as a goal. But it was a bit disappointing to see that Scamacca was probably, in my opinion, the best performer yesterday, I think. Apart from, obviously, that's the very easy one to pick. But I think if we looked like scoring, it was all going through him pretty much when before Ben Rama came on. And he showed what it is to be a mobile centre forward with so much height, power, and athleticism.
I think a lot about him as well. That when you look at his chances, they were all actually only half chances at best, the Scamacca ones. But such is his ability, you actually look and go, "What's a big chance?" When actually, in reality, they're all half chances. Even the one he hit from about 30 yards and nearly put it in the top corner. The power he generated in that shot was incredible. And the other opportunities, again, just a bit of bad luck. In another game, he's walking away with probably at least a brace because they makes hard opportunities look easy.
In a way. The last chance he had, I think it was it's the one where he's slightly out to his left of the penalty area, and he hits it, and their keeper makes a decent save. But my dad went, "Oh, he should have lobbed him from there. Or he could have lobbed him." And I said, "He's on the edge of the penalty area. Like, the angle's tight. It's like that's a tough one." And he went, "I know, but he's got the ability."
I think Totti's about the only player I've ever really seen successfully lobbing a goalkeeper from just outside the edge of the area.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's great to have a centre forward who you can bet is going to score, but it's just frustrating when they don't, because, as I said, he was everything that was good yesterday about our attack. We obviously had. I was a bit critical of Bowen. I thought there was one chance in particular where he played a terrible ball into Paqueta, and all he had to do was knock it in front of him, and Paqueta dusts Salisu and has a chance on goal. He plays it to his feet instead of in front of him, and it slows everything down. And it's those margins, those fine margins at the moment, that are just the difference between 1 point, no points, or 3. And for us, we're not getting. We had a bit of luck last week where those margins came in, but this week it just wasn't the case.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point as well. Is that when you look at the overall of the game, you would probably say we maybe shaded it. Probably they had more the clear cut of chances, but we probably, in terms of overall play and the number of shots and so on that we had, we probably did shade the game and probably wouldn't have been unjust had we won it. And again, you just kind of look at, Paqueta had a couple of good chances. He's starting to get into it now. You see he's starting to want to stand up a lot more because he knows he's not going to get the free kicks as easily. And his link play again with Scamacca is good. He's always in and around and buzzing. He's yet to really look $1 million yet. But again, he's still looking good. He's having those patches where he's really starting to get up to pace. And I think that's the thing with Paqueta, is that you can see him getting up to pace. But, we had that first early kind of phase where it was good. We were looking quite promising with a couple of early opportunities, which we threatened. And I think it was almost right after Skamaka had his 30-yard shot, which was speculative, but in the end for him was almost a brilliant effort, that we had the first bit of controversy in the game, which then followed by a very second bit of controversy. So, foul throws and phantom blocks is kind of how I kind of looked at it. And obviously we saw the throw from Walker Peters, and I think it's only fair, we just kind of flash it up. So as the rule says, for a throw you have to be standing facing the pitch, have a part of each foot on the touchline or on the ground outside the touchline, and they throw the ball with both hands from behind the head, from the point of play where the ball went off. So by the letter of the law, it is a legitimate throw. His foot was on the pitch, but also his heel is on the line. So if we go by the letter of the law, a part of his foot is touching the line. His other foot is behind it as well. So he is technically still out of play and his throw is legitimate. So, yes, that bit is frustrating. But the next part was what annoyed me even more, is because the referee got in the way of Bowen. Now, that sometimes happens and the refs call it up, and, and I think you alluded to it as well, that within the rules, it's only if the ball touches the ref. It's not actually if the ref essentially causes a collision or causes a block. Is that technically in the rules that you have to stop the game? But what frustrated me was Bowen stopped.
Yeah. He
stopped, turned to the ref, stretched his arms out. Now, that few fractions of a second where he did that also gave Perraud that space. Now, there was another piece just before that where Soucek was very ineffective with his clearance. He miscued it. So even if we were annoyed by the foul throw, or what we perceive to be a foul throw, which based on those rules is legitimate, we still had times in which to get rid of it. Soucek fluffed his lines there with his first clearance. Yes, Bowen did get blocked by the referee, but then he stopped. What do we tell every kid? Play the whistle. He didn't play the whistle. He basically stopped playing. Perraud then took a chance, got a massive deflection, got the luck. And you kind of look at that whole sequence and you go, yeah, fair enough, because there's some contentious pieces in there, but we were complicit in our own doom at that point, I would say. What was your take on the goal?
I think my disappointment is any part of the foot touching the line, for me, I think it's a bit of a bullshit law, to be honest.
It seems a cop out, doesn't it? Because you always kind of told you need to stay behind the line, because technically he steps onto the field of play. So
if it was half his foot, or if it was the bulk of the foot, that kind of thing, it's hard to argue with that. But I think there are so many foul throws these days that just aren't given, and I think it's kind of like nobody's VAR is never going to come back and give that, because VAR is effectively as ineffective as the officials that are using it. And I think when we talk about Bowen there, for me, he's just got to be taking the ref out. He's got, because the fact of the matter is that the referee can't make himself disappear. The referee can't just go like that and not. He has to place him somewhere on the field that he deems he's keeping up with play, and he's chosen the wrong place. But Bowen just needs to clatter him, go through him, and say, "You were in my way. I'm really sorry, but you're in my way." Instead, he chooses, as you say, to stop, flap his arms out instead of actually just sticking one on Perraud. And it's the wrong choice. I get why he's done it, because he's obviously a nice lad. He's unlike myself, where I'd have just run into him.
Yeah, you're in my way. Move.
but that's that's the difference between getting a free kick there, or the ref stopping play, and the goal. So I find that
you can also look at the Nottingham Forest game, where obviously we know why it was called as foul, because Antonio pushed with his arms out. But it's the same principle. He blocked a player who was going to be in a position in which to influence maybe the game, and obviously the ref blocked Bowen, regardless of how we look at it. It was a block, but Bowen didn't help himself because he just stopped. But again, it's those inconsistencies where you can maybe hark back to another game and say, well, if that was a foul, and we know why it was, because Antonio's exaggeration with the contact, it's just that, well, where does that line go? Because obviously, if he hits the ref, you have to stop the game.
Well, look, you have to in today's game, you have to force the decision, or you have to clear and obvious, because that's what everyone is looking for. And Bowen just doesn't do that. And it's I can't sit here and say he did the wrong thing, because he didn't really. It should have been called back by the ref. The ref should have gone on his whistle. I've interfered with play. I've got in his way. But Bowen doesn't force that. If he cleans him out, the ref's not just going to fall to the ground and go, "What's happened?" Like,
yeah.
I've got to do something here, but what is it? I'll book Bowen. He's not going to do that. He's going to realise he's got in the way. He's impacted what's happened.
It'll be a drop ball. You give the ball back to Southampton.
Exactly. But it's, I mean, two sides of the coin. That is what leads to our goal later on, pretty much. That is big.
Exactly. That's what I was also going to say, is that, in the lead up to our goal, obviously we play it across and it comes off of the ref. I think it's also Bowen at the time also stretches his arms out on which to say, well, you're going to stop the game. But he obviously lands at Rice's feet before he plays it into Ben Rama. But before we get on to the goal, I think it's probably a good thing just to kind of talk about, our reaction after conceding was still positive. The heads didn't go down. Much as we said throughout this season, we seem to play more when we concede, although I wouldn't say that was the case in this game. I think we actually were playing pretty well. And yeah, we had opportunities. Scamacca had what feels like some glorious opportunities, but when you really look at it, they were half chances. But he made that effort. He made those efforts so close to being a goal, or he made them look like such good efforts that you kind of sit there and go, you lament the fact that they went wide or they missed. Paqueta had a couple of good chances as well. There were opportunities, and as I said, I think there was more of a call for a penalty with the Bowen collision in the box. It was light, but
I don't know.
When the player gets in front and then you're hit from behind.
I'm going to disagree with you on the Souček one. For me, that's a clear and obvious penalty. The ref's got one job there. The lino should be making sure that the corner's taken properly. It's not outside the area. But
would you say that's because it's so early in the game that he didn't give it? Because it was about, I think, 4th minute. Do you think that would be why?
I personally just think it's inept. I think it's inept from the referee, and I think it's inept from our officials, because what's happening is the ref's not looking at the area. He's looking at. It looks like he's looking at specific players instead of, is there a foul happening in the area? And because he's doing that, he can't see what's going on.
Yeah.
So therefore, the VAR should go, actually, you need to call it back for the foul on Souček. And it doesn't. But it's a very clear foul. If you have your arms wrapped around a player and you stop them from going for it, that's a foul. If that's Ronaldo, he's thrown himself on the floor, his arms wide, running in the referee's face, and,
Well, as we saw yesterday, Ronaldo doesn't always get it his own way. He tried that yesterday and it went flat. But again, it's the point, yeah.
The ref into doing something, and also you force the VAR into checking something. Because if that happens and Souček runs over and goes, what's going on, gets booked, then they're going to come back to it and go, wait a minute, was there something in that? Oh, there is. So by the letter of the law, it's a penalty because he's impeding the player. There's also as well a handful. Salisu has a handful of Scamacca's shirt, like round the neck. He's got a handful of his shirt, and it was funny because they showed it on Match of the Day. They did the little circle thing where they zoom in on it, and you can just see Salisu's hand is right on Scamacca's shirt.
Yeah.
I think if he can't see the Souček one, and he
should be able
can't,
to see the other one. Yeah,
he should be able to see one of the two. Now, if you can't see that, why is VAR not getting involved? And that's the issue.
I think that's then where they hide behind clear and obvious, and
well,
that's
it is
the problem.
I mean, like, if you said to anyone, he got his hand round the scruff of his neck, the shirt collar, is that a foul? Yeah, obviously. Well, it's clear and obvious. So
I think the other argument is it clear and obvious that the ref missed it? I think that's the problem. It's clear and obvious when you see it in replays, and it's a clear and obvious foul. But the argument is it a clear and obvious mistake from the referee? And I think that's where the blurring comes, and that's why they work in that grey area.
If he's seen it and he's not given it, it's a clear and obvious mistake by the referee. Really? Give it. It is inept. I'm going to keep saying that, and I've got a feeling I'm going to say it more and more this season. It is inept from the officials, and it is inept from the use of VAR. The VAR mug sat there going, "Oh, is that a foul?" or buzzing the referee. I don't know what they're doing, because it's clear they're not doing anything that's relevant to the game, and that's what they should be. A lot of people's worries when they brought in these referees was, oh, it's going to be like American football or basketball where there's a penalty every. Well, do you know what? If that's what it takes for people to understand that a foul should be a penalty, if it takes a game to be 6-5 and 4 penalties in a game, I don't care. I just want to see consistency, and I want to see fouls punished. So therefore, give it, interfere with the game, because that's what VAR should do. And I just think it's pathetic at the moment.
Yeah. So talking of pathetic, now this is probably a bit of a harsh word, but our set pieces at the moment, obviously they're not hitting the heights of our previous seasons, largely ineffective. Whether it's a combination of the quality of delivery, the variation of quality, delivery, or even our movement in the area in which to get free from our markers. At the moment, set pieces are not paying dividends. And bearing in mind, we put a fair emphasis on them. Is it fair to say that there's a group or a collective failing at the moment in which to maximise set pieces, especially in games like today against Southampton, where a good set piece could have been the difference and likely would have been the difference had we been putting in consistently good deliveries? Probably would have made that pressure might have told because of the pressure we're putting in open play as well. Do you think it's a fair assessment to say collectively there's a problem at the moment as to how we're setting up at these set pieces?
I think fair is an understatement. I think they're terrible. I think the only good set piece we've had this season was Ben Rama's against Anderlecht. They've been awful. And the amount of times we've done the stupid little short pass instead of actually just thinking, we've got Scamacca and we've got all these big physical players like Souček. For all his faults this season, and, I don't think he's been as bad as everyone's saying, but for all his faults this season, Souček will give you 5 goals from a set piece, from a header. And we are consistently delivering terrible crosses that don't beat the first man or just are...
It's also into a congested 5-yard area or 6-yard area. And we don't seem to be changing out the way that we move. Like, people maybe just hang on there and then dropping out of it. Everyone seems to be having standing jumps. It doesn't really seem to be many attacking the ball. We used to attack. We're probably about 3 or 4 actually coming in to attack the ball, whereas now we seem to be just going, well, we'll just drop it on top of the goalkeeper and just see if we can force something. And it's the same again and again and again, and it's just not creating anything.
It's very rare in modern football that you can play a ball into the goalkeeper and it be a success for you. Because let's face it, all goalkeepers these days are over 6 foot, and every football fan will tell you that goalkeepers get protection. That's it's fair enough, but they need protection, or else they would just get bullied. But you cannot just keep putting it into the mixer and expecting the same result and expecting someone to just go nod it past the keeper, because it's not going to happen. And it hasn't happened so far this season. The issue is a mixture of terrible delivery, but also there's no plan B. And I think when we're looking at players taking free kicks, I think apart from Ben Rama and Skamaka, because he's new, I haven't really got anyone who I think he's going to deliver a quality ball. Even Cresswell. I think Cresswell's delivery has been absolutely terrible recently from set pieces. And we just do not look a threat. And you've really got to question why. So whether we need to mix things up and change the person who is taking our set pieces, which is personally what I do, I'd put Ben Rama on a lot of the set pieces and go from there. Because one thing with Ben Rama is that even if he's trying to score himself, he doesn't tend to just hit it hard. He tends to put quite a whip on it. He tends to hit it quite low. And that is a nightmare for defenders. It's a nightmare for the goalkeeper. But it also gives your attack a much better chance of getting on the end of it. And I just think we look like we haven't got a plan. It looks like for the past 6 months or so, since Stuart Pearce left, we have not had a plan from set pieces.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. And before we, again, I think we probably covered off our set piece problem at the moment, or the lack of threat that we're giving. Two players I kind of want to talk to before we get on to the brilliant finish that was Declan Rice. Our two checkmates. Now, they've been much maligned this season. Obviously, Souček isn't scoring as many, but as we've seen in the last few games, he's been impeccable for us defensively, minus that scuff clearance again the Southampton game. He was brilliant defensively. Every set piece, his head was on it. Every restart from the goalkeeper, again, his head was on it. Defensively, he's breaking up play. He's making things happen again. Possession, yes, that's where his limitations in. Same with Soufal. Soufal, even in the game yesterday, actually had a fairly decent game, in my opinion. It was more of a Soufal we expect. It's just his delivery isn't as on point as it used to. And what he seems to be struggling with is pace. Since his injury, he seems to really be struggling to get that acceleration that he had and to maintain that kind of that sprint. And again, obviously, he got a lot of kind of adverse reaction on Twitter the other day, and actually deleted his tweet. And what's been quite nice is today is to see a lot of fans coming out in support of him, saying to keep going. And he's obviously taken that to heart and been felt the love, shall we say. But do you feel that some of the criticism is going beyond actually the performances now, and actually it's just a focus now on anything that's negative rather than actually looking at a collective performance? And it's more that when there's something that is perceived as a wrong decision or a misstep in the game, that's overshadows all the other good work that they do at the moment.
I think it's vile people who pick up on things in a match or pick up on someone they don't like, because I'll be honest here, we have a vile section of fans who either don't like someone because they perceive them as not good enough, they don't like someone because they're foreign, or they don't like them because they've got something so rotten in their own personal life that is just eating away at them and they have to throw it at someone else. And, that's humanity as a whole, is people do that. And I understand that they want to project. And I understand that you want to have a vent. Go do some press-ups. If you're not in the shape to do that, if you can't do that, go and read a sodding book. I don't care what you do, but why you feel the need to sit there and slate someone, like, I said, I don't think Johnson's developed to the degree that he should have. And someone said to me, that's like, kind of said it was overstepping. I said, well, I've not slated him. I've not anything that's kind of out of order, I just said, I don't think he's progressed enough. And we had a decent dialogue back and forward. I totally understand that point of view. You know, if someone thinks, oh, that's a bit harsh, fair enough. But don't slate someone directly. I think we've got a real issue with a section of fans who think it's funny to use these vile words. And let's make no two ways about it, bully players. What they are is they're insecure little bullies. And they sit there and they think it's funny to go, oh, Souček's an R word because he can't do this. And you think, who has raised you? Who has made you this way that you're so angry at yourself? You're projecting it onto other players. You're supposed to be a supporter. And instead, what you're doing is you're trying to pick on someone. And you can bet that if that person meets Souček face to face, they're going to be going, oh, can I have a selfie? Oh, can I do this? Instead of going, I thought you were terrible against Southampton. I thought you were really bad. There's nothing constructive. It's just stupid, vile people doing stupid, vile things and then expecting a pat on the back from it. And the sad thing is that there is so many of these people out there that someone else will go, that was really funny.
Yeah, exactly. And there's always that mob rule thing that once one starts, there comes a cascading thing. But also, you know, I think we've been very critical of both Souček and Soufal over the past this season. But again, we've also then been very much complimentary when they've done well, like Soufal in the last game where he actually did really well. You know, I think he does struggle sometimes as a wing back, but what you have to commend is he got forward so much in that game against Southampton. Some of his deliveries were inconsistent, but he also ensured that we had numbers in the box. A lot of the time when crosses were coming in, he was at the far post. Bowen was maybe in the centre. Scamacca was outside. He was another body in the box. He was always committed to be forward and to offer himself. And even when he's not playing well, he will always give everything. Same with Souček. He will make mistakes in possession, but there's these other small intangible pieces such as winning headers at restarts, winning headers at set pieces. These things are overlooked because it's not the 60, 70-yard pass. It's also a moment where Souček played a beautiful, probably 40, 50-yard pass along the floor, down the side, playing in Bowen to get us onto a counter-attack. And I think we had led to him passing it into Scamacca, but was easy to close down. But again, it's those moments where they are doing these positive things in games are overlooked because it doesn't fit an agenda of, I want to be negative to you. I'm not happy that we didn't win. I'm not happy that you didn't do this one thing. Therefore, I'm going to tell you that you are essentially a pathetic excuse for a footballer. And it's really just, some of it is degrading and it's just beyond stupidity. And I think it's something we probably should raise because I don't think maybe sometimes in the channels we kind of, I think when you look around, it's kind of get a bit quiet sometimes.
I mean, I said before, and I know whenever you say anything about issues fans have with foreign players or players of colour, like people go, oh, you've made it about that, and it's like, no, unfortunately, we do have a problem. We do have a problem with a certain section of fans who just don't like that. And, you know, they won't criticise Bowen. They won't criticise Rice. They'll always stand behind them. And that's fine. Like, if you want to support in that way, stand behind your player, back them. But don't then change just because you don't like the other player. And, you know, if you don't like Soufal, fair enough. Like, that's your prerogative. You can make that decision, fine. But don't go online and slate him. What good is that getting you as a person?
Yeah, it's the personal attacks that are ridiculous. And what I will say is, from all of that negativity of what Soufal got the other day of having to then delete a tweet, is actually turned into a positive in the fact that a lot of fans have stood up to say, you know, you give everything for the club. Everyone has nothing but love and respect for you. We understand, obviously, some of the performances are not at the levels that we want them to be at, but it's not going to be at levels that he wants to be at as well. And that's what hurts. I think it was Gilly Flaherty, used to play for the ladies' team, was having the same kind of issue at Liverpool, where she said, you can take it from other fans, you expect it, it's part of it, but when it comes from your own, who are meant to support you and back you, it really hits hard. And I think that's something we need to understand, that, yes, we're going to always have problems with performance, but ultimately, we are there to support and to back the team. And we're all going to be critical at times to time. But again, it's the way in which it's delivered.
It raised its ugly head with the Zuma issue as well. When,
yeah.
You know, I'll say it again. I'll stand by it. I don't want him at the club in terms of like, I'll support him. My own opinion is I don't want people who act like that at my football club.
Yeah.
People who think that's acceptable. I understand he's had his punishment. I understand, but for me, that doesn't sit well with me, and he hasn't done enough since for me to go, okay, he's really changed. Now, I know that's a whole different kettle of fish. However, what I'm trying to say is there was a section of fans who were tweeting horrific stuff at him. I remember I retweeted. In fact, no, I didn't retweet it because I didn't want to give it the time. I replied to it, and it was someone had put a gorilla gif, a gorilla video, and it was a West Ham account. And you think, what is wrong with you that you're what is so just what is the malfunction in your system that you have to therefore go, I'm going to tweet something horrible and racist, or I'm going to tweet something that is horrible to you? Because I bet you, if Declan Rice had done it, if Declan Rice had kicked a cat, their first thought would not be race.
A racial connotation, a racial slur, yeah, exactly.
I know we're probably going to get people who go, oh, you always like someone's make it always has to do this, or it's not about that. The problem is we have some rotten people in our fan base, and football as a whole has this problem. They have people who are so territorial and so tribally protective that it's rooted from tribalism, and they go, I don't like you, or I don't like what you did, therefore I'm going to pick on something else that I don't like about you. And it's disgusting. These people need to be found, and I'm almost in favour of bringing back public stocks.
True.
But the only problem is with that, you'd waste food, and let's face it, at the moment, that's not really good. So
exactly. And I think like I say, everything you say is fair, and also your comments as to the way you feel about Zuma is incredibly mature and incredibly rational, and that's the thing. You never don't mind people not wanting players at clubs, not valuing them at the club, but there are lines in which you don't kind of cross, or there's just ways in which to express when you don't feel players at it. Again, I'm pretty sure even I've tweeted to a player like, look, it wasn't the greatest game today, but you always give us everything, and that's all we ever ask for.
Yeah,
and it's true, because sometimes players they know they haven't had the best game, but as long as they can say I've given everything, and I can know you can always say that with Soufal, but I think it's probably we'll have one more comment as well from you on this, but I think we'll end it after this as to that piece about this piece about the Souček and the Soufal kind of criticisms. But I think if there's one thing you can never say against these two, is that they will never walk off the pitch without giving everything. Maybe not everything is good enough sometimes when you talk about technical ability, but in terms of heart, passion, the energy, they're always going to give that. They're always going to give everything they have athletically. If maybe the technical aspects of their ability isn't up to the par or the bar that they've set previously.
Well, I mean, the frustrating thing is you can bet that a lot of the people who are criticising him now, and let's say bullying, were the same people who, after he stayed on the pitch at Frankfurt, were going, oh, look at the passion, look at he's like,
one of us, he gets it kind of thing. Yeah.
He gets it. And I just think it's pathetic. There's that Mike Tyson kind of quote, which I'm going to paraphrase where he says, social media's made people comfortable with slating someone when if you did it,
no consequences, yeah.
And it's true. So it's unfortunately there are so many people these days who just think they can tweet what they want or message people what they want and get away with it, and they fall behind this notion that freedom of speech means you have freedom of consequence, and it's just completely untrue. So with that, I think I'm going to get off my high horse.
Yeah, so we've digressed a little away from the game, but again, this is important because this was a direct impact of this game led to what we've kind of talked about. But coming back to it, obviously we were constantly knocking at the door in that second half. We obviously were quite a bit in the first half as well, but the same thing that we complained about the ref getting involved in play, interfering. He did technically interfere because the ball came off him, but fair play. He recognised we had the ball. And the one thing that we've asked Declan Rice to do, and one thing we've asked other players to do a lot more, is that little injection of extra pace. That not necessarily in pace in terms of how fast you are, but we're on about that delivery of the ball, those quick, sharp movements, and that sequence where he played it to Benrahma. So he came back to, I think it was Cresswell before playing it inside for Rice. But again, it's those quick little movements of that give and go, moving into position. And again, that link play between Benrahma and Rice was just absolutely spot on. And then the finish was, that is what you expect of a class player. And I think...
Well, Benrahma did something fantastic, which I'm not sure has been talked about enough yet, where when he comes on and when that move starts, he drags three players with him into that corner. And with that, he knocks it back to Cresswell, who gives him back the ball, and he immediately plays in Rice. And, I've said about Rice that the main thing, pretty much the only thing in his game that I think he really needs to improve is his shooting. And, if he keeps doing that sort of thing, if he keeps taking chances like that, then we will be looking at a complete footballer. Because
I think what was interesting is he looked relaxed. That's the first time I think I've seen him shoot this season where he actually seemed really relaxed when he hit it, and he just stroked the ball into that bottom corner. And I think we had a couple of games like against Chelsea where it was tense. He kind of leant back slightly and just went for power, whereas this time it was just as if he was training. It's like muscle memory. You've done it countless times in training. You're just going to hit it and guide it into that bottom corner. And I think, as you say, do that more. What a player.
I think that's my one of the issues that I think we have as a side is we just look a bit uncomfortable having a shot from distance. And Scamacca is the one player who I think
does not care, does he? He's just, I'm going to have it.
Yeah. And, when Benrahma does it more, and, quite often people say he wastes chances or whatever, but I'd much rather have a player have a pop.
Yes.
And if it takes a deflection, we get something from it. We get a set piece.
Look at Southampton's. Their goal came from a big deflection.
Yeah. And I just don't, I can't remember the last time I saw Souček have a shot from outside the penalty area. But in his first season, he would absolutely hammer it. And
we got a couple of goals through that as well, just for someone running in and tapping in. Souček obviously was the benefit of some of those as well.
So I think it's something we need to improve on, but passage of play where we just play a little one or two touch passing and drag the opposition over the pitch. And what a finish from Rice.
Yeah.
I think the keeper had a great game, and the only way we were going to beat him was with something.
You felt like it had to be something a bit spectacular, didn't it? In the end?
Or just a scrap. Is it like just something scrap?
A 2-yard weldy, that kind of goal, yeah.
And against Southampton when it bounced up and hit him in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what a goal that was. That's what a way to open up. Yeah, But I think again, there were some frustrations again. The late substitution, maybe of the 88th minute, bringing on Lanzini, bringing Antonio again was probably too late in the day. Again, Antonio has been ill, so you can probably understand maybe why he didn't come on. But again, I put a tweet out earlier. Maybe sometimes I think we lack that instinct, sometimes on the pitch and off the pitch, to understand when a game is there for the taking, and then making some aggressive changes in which to essentially seize that moment and go for it. But I think overall it was a positive game from us. We probably shaded it a little and probably could have come away with 3 points, but from the position we were in to then get a draw is obviously, it's a point earned. Some would say we'd dropped 2 points, but considering we were 1-0 down, it's a point earned. Let's look at it positively rather than the negative side of it. Any game where you go away from home, especially with our recent record, to get a draw is great, especially when also you come from a losing position. And we did have a few things go against us in the game, mainly around that Perraud goal. But ultimately, we showed some, again, I think there's a lot of positivity you can take from it, especially with the likes of Skamaka's bleeding that line and dictating play, which I think is an incredibly difficult thing to do as a centre forward, to actually dictate a game. It's incredibly difficult, but he does it. And again, Rice, grew into that game and just become, again, he just made everything happen for us as well. But yeah, there are negatives. We didn't win, but there are a good collective bunch of positives as well. So I think probably, on that note, we got a point. It's probably good for us to talk about who our man of the match was. So who are you going for, Sloth?
I mean, it's got to be almost Declan Rice. I think, he was great yesterday, and he showed just why West Ham fans rate him as much as they do. I think there's also a couple of really worthy shout outs. I think Paqueta, he's playing in this role that isn't his favourite role, but he's doing well there. And Scamacca, just again, as we say, he gives us so much confidence going into games, and he is massive. He is so he gives us that Antonio physical edge that people seem to think is irreplaceable, but he gives you that bit more as well. He gives you that bit more, and it's nothing against Antonio. It's just it's just.
I just think he is. I don't know. The thing that we've already been told we're going to have for many a year, he's just that level above. Technically, physically, he's obviously not at the same level as Antonio, but again, he's incredibly difficult to kind of manage. And I think, again, your call for man of the match is spot on. I think Declan Rice is the player. Everything goes through him. He was strong defensively. He was helping out the team, whether it be running over to the right back position in which to help out, or to help out on Cresswell. And considering he plays the left side of midfield, that's quite a run to go diagonally into the right back position to help out. But again, his goal was sublime, and it came at a point where we really needed our captain to step up and do a captain's role. So yeah, I think Declan Rice is the man of the match. It was a frustrating game, but a point earned is always good. And, again, it's about to keep ticking over, keep those points coming, and we'll eventually start to see this team really start clicking. And again, considering the problems we had in our defence, I think we would have maybe taken a draw at the start of the game, bearing in mind the defensive issues that we had as well. So let's leave it there. There are some frustrations, but again, I'm going to concentrate on the good stuff. But thanks for watching, guys. Obviously, again, please do follow us on our Twitter page. If you like this, please do subscribe. I think we've hit over 300 now, so everyone who does subscribe, thank you very much. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, one last thing to say, Sloth. Come on, you Lions.